And welcome back to another episode of Geek Centurions. We're back. This is our review of Spider-Man into the Across the Spider-Verse.
Across the Spider-Verse, yes.
Originally part 1.
Yeah.
They pulled an Infinity War on us.
Yeah, the second one's gonna be its own movie, right?
Yeah.
Comes out next March, right?
Yeah, March of next year. So yeah. Oh my God, this is how do we talk about this movie without spoiling it? Because this is a very hard movie not to spoil, right?
Yeah, and it's especially hard because it is a little bit of a spoiler, but because this was originally a part 2, there is a clear cliffhanger sort of setting to it, right?
Yeah, in the same vein as Infinity War, I would say, where that one just kind of it just ends, right? Though I feel like some people are gonna be more annoyed with this one than it was for Infinity War, because it ends at such a high note.
Well, it ends at what Now, granted, if it continued on, it would definitely feel a bit rushed, but...
Oh, no, of course. Yeah, no, there's a reason why there's a part 2, and then I think there's also a reason why the second film is going to be in its own thing.
Yeah.
But yes, Across the Spider-Verse, we are continuing Miles' story as Spider-Man, as more dimensional traveling as a foot. The Spot, which is a very C tier, I'm probably giving it the wrong...
Yeah, it's a very obscure Spider-Man villain, right?
Very obscure. My only reference to him was in the anime 90s cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and in that one he dies. Literally, the first episode shows up, he comes in and he dies. But they use his technology, the stuff that he does in this movie, akin to. I'll get into that in a minute, right? So, which leads into the eventual meeting of Miles and the rest of the Spider group, I guess, society. I guess is what this was.
A legion of spiders,
if you will.
I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, that's basically the broad strokes of it. As we tend to do, we tend to give our 1 minute thoughts on this film, and then we go into deeper discussion. Again, this will be a spoiler free. We will not be talking about that much about the movie. And it will be hard for us because it's kind of hard not to. But we'll start off with Joey. You'll give us your 1 minute thought on this movie.
All right. So Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is I will say that it lives up to, I think, the hype that a lot of people wanted from the since the first Spider-Verse was such a good movie. So it lives up to the hype. It's still beautifully animated, seeing all these various characters with their own animation styles, and seeing all that transpire in this movie is great. Miles' journey seems to be he's going to be on a very interesting journey about whether or not, he's able to fit in with these new Spider people, as well as just figuring out his own place in this whole Spider-Verse, if you will. And we see all the other characters that do show up, like Miguel O'Hara and Spider-Punk. All those guys are super interesting. I really do enjoy this movie. I think it is just it's a great sequel and follow-up to the original Spider-Verse.
All right, you went a little over, but pretty good summer up. All right, I guess that leaves it to me. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If you are a big Spider-Man fan, this is one of the movies to watch. This is one of those movies that, whether or not you feel like the live actions weren't hype enough or whatever reason, no, this movie lives up to everything you want. All the animation styles across the board are each different and unique to themselves, and are all fun in their own very way, and their own way. The characters are also very well written in a way that fits within the story. Continuing themes come up from the first movie, and consequences from the first movie also continue on into this film. And so, again, if you are a big Spider-Man fan, there's a lot of stuff for you in there. There's a lot of stuff that I couldn't help but point out, and that's I felt like a kid again, and the story leaves you on such a high note that makes you can't wait for the next one. So yeah, that's our thought. Now, where do we begin in our conversation? I guess the first part is Miles himself. At this point, he's a year into being Spider-Man,
Yeah, a year into being Spider-Man.
and already he's having a hard time dealing both the life of a superhero and the life of a normal person.
Yeah, like he's obviously having to balance both of these responsibilities. Like he's having these conversations about going to college. Like obviously he has issues with his parents as well. Like trying to like live this double life. His dad's a cop, and he's very sort of like having to like go behind their backs and stuff. And then they're like, "Hey, where you always going, Miles?" Like it's kind of concerning.
A thing that Peter has not had to deal with in such a long time. So when I say it's his own journey, it's very much that where he's kind of doing his own thing, but still trying to find that like nice like work life balance. Now, whether or not he's successful in that is going to be the point of the what comes next in this film and in the next one,
Right.
because there's a lot of like things riding on him being that way. Obviously, we have an introduction of Miguel O'Hara and the rest of the Spider-Verse. What do you think about that?
From the various Spider people that do show up.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah.
I think he's very good. I think Oscar Isaac does great as Miguel O'Hara.
Yeah, it's interesting how in the promotional material they kind of paint him as the villain, right? Well, obviously the villain is Spot, and but Miguel himself isn't as he's antagonistic, but not in a I'm the bad guy kind of way.
Yeah, because it's very much like Miguel's whole thing is that he's the guy who brought all these Spider people together, pretty much to like maintain the multiverse, if you will.
Yeah.
Which is why Spot is a big deal, because he's messing with that.
Yeah.
And he's very much like, we got to stop this guy. Whatever. And obviously him and Miles come to a head because of certain methods Miguel uses. And Miles is like, hey, that's not cool, man. And that they have their sort of disagreements, and that's sort of where we do see Miguel being like antagonistic. Like he's not, like, I would agree, yeah, he's not a bad guy in that sense, but he's pretty much like the means justify the ends kind of thing. Yeah.
And as someone who's read on 2099 Miguel, he is basically as faithful to the comics as he is, because he's always been kind of known as like the asshole Spider-Man. And more so than like, he's kind of in the same vein as like Kane Parker or Ben Reilly in some aspect. By the way, Ben Reilly does show up, and I love how they make him basically this like 90s edge boy.
Yeah, like he's a very angsty guy, very sort of, he's a product of the 90s.
Yeah, very brooding.
Yeah.
And not but in a fun way, not like a Batman kind of way.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, my past, oh, it hurts. But yeah, no, you get a lot of that. But Miguel is always the headstrong one. Yeah, and so like seeing Miguel being the way he is not only fitting for the character, but his reasonings are very understandable. It actually kind of reminds me of some of the aspects that happened in the comics back when he's on it. But I'm not going to go that deep into it because it's not that important to the overall thing.
Yeah, I mean, we also see Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman.
Very different Jessica Drew. Same themes going on, but very different.
Yeah, and Spider-Punk, who's interesting.
Yeah, he's very much to the key.
Yeah, like, he even has this very sort of, punk art style.
Yeah.
And how he's animated. Like, he's always, like, kind of changing, like, colors here and there and stuff.
Yeah, like, if you ever think about, like, the punk aesthetic of the 70s and, like the 80s era, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, like he's like straight up like it feels like he's like being ripped by like various album covers of like various punk bands like the Sex Pistols and stuff like that. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. There's a very much like aspect of that.
Then you got I I forget his name, like his actual name, but he's basically Spider-Man India, right?
It's Peter Parker, but like in a very like Indian way.
Yeah, like
And he's one of those characters that has a very much like a redesign, because like he had a very much like a Eastern kind of look to it, like in the original comics, but like here they ramped it up. They made it more colorful and stuff.
yeah, he's a pretty interesting, cool guy. You
Yeah.
know, trying to think of other stuff. I mean, there's also various cameos of other like
Yeah.
notable animated versions of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing the Unlimited.
Yeah,
For, like, a
Unlimited was
second?
there. I saw him too. Spectacular. The PS5 Spider-Man was in there.
Yeah, like Insomniac Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He actually does get a line. And
Yeah.
I think they actually just use his game model for like they don't
Yeah.
like make a reanimated version or like because some of that stuff is like not like because like I think with Spider-Man Unlimited like it's just him but like in a 3D model esque
Yeah.
kind of thing. But no, with I'm pretty sure with the Insomniac Spider-Man it's just his model from the PlayStation game
Yeah.
being voice acted, and you even get Yuri Lowenthal to do a line.
Which is pretty funny to me.
Yeah,
They even get Joss Keaton to do a line as the Spectacular Spider-Man from the cartoon.
yeah.
And like a little hint of like shit that could have happened in season 3. But yeah, no, this is probably like again, when I was saying earlier, there's a lot of stuff in here. If you're a big Spider-Man fan, you'll notice. Like to my surprise, they included one of the newer Spider people that was in the comics. The one that was paraplegic. You noticed her, but like I like how you didn't really notice that she was paraplegic, but she was like on a wheelchair with the little.
Yeah, I just thought she
Yeah.
might have been like Professor X kind of,
No. She's like a Spider-Man kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's really cool. I really liked the introduction of her. She was really awesome. But yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff going around. I want to talk more about it, but again, I can't be spoiling too much, right? Because it's very hard for me not to spoil. Because there's a lot of stuff in this movie that I want to talk about, but I can't. Because it's like it wouldn't feel right. Because I want people who go out there and watch it to be blown away, just as much as I was.
Yeah, because I'll say this right now, because I remember seeing comments about this whenever we saw like new clips coming out like these past couple of weeks of
Yeah.
the Spider-Verse. People were being like, I think they're showing too much of the movie.
They do not.
No, you're getting like the clips that are out there right now, like the promotional clips, are all of like, like the fan servicey kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the actual meat and bone of the story is still like very well hidden, and like once you learn like the exact like disagreement that causes Miles to go, nah, this ain't me, man. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah.
To like that like sort of like crux, that conflict
Yeah.
is like the real like okay, this is big, this is thematic, and then it obviously it's like leads into the various consequences afterwards, and like now you're like, okay, so how is the next movie gonna go?
Yeah. There's a lot of like questions arise and like possibilities that come out of this. Because again, it is a part 1. It's technically it was supposed to be a part 1. Technically, it still is, but the third movie is going to be its own thing. There's like a. I hate to use this because it's one of those overused lines when people talk about movies, especially when it comes to a very good sequel. It's The Empire Strikes Back.
yeah, I know what you mean. Like where like the second one is a bit darker, puts our characters in a very like at a low point.
Yeah.
And sets up like all right, this next one is gonna be the one that like wraps things up.
Yeah.
That like puts
Yeah, and again, I'd hate to use that, but they're not wrong because like there's a lot of aspects in there that made me go like, okay, I wonder if they'll do this, I wonder if they'll do that kind of stuff, and I can't be hyping myself up too much because if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna be very disappointed.
Right.
Not to say that this is a disappointing movie. This is a very good movie. it's like one of the best anime movies I think to come out in a long time, especially with like a lot of the artistic styles that they wanted to go with, and a lot of the you know, flair that each Spider-Man kind of has. Like, there's a lot of stuff that, especially when they go to their respective universe, like I think Peter, I can't say it.
It's very hard.
I don't like to like mispronounce names. I don't like to butcher them. Years of hearing my name being butchered has caused me like to be more, you know.
Yeah, no, I get that. But yeah, no. I'm just gonna go with Indian Spider-Man.
Yeah, Indian Spider-Man. He's still Spider-Man, but yeah. Like his world is so colorful and like vibrant, and it's like so amazing. And like we talked about earlier with Hobby, Spider-Punk, his is so like amazing. I can't wait to see his universe. And then like we go to like another universe, when I can say what universe it is, but it's so dark and like hopeless, I would say, kind of thing. And then it fits that aesthetic for that world. When we get to like you know,
Miguel O'Hara.
It's very futuristic because that's kind of the point. It's 2099, right? And it's kind of has its own flair to it. Now, what I mean by Miguel is antagonistic, but like he has a point. I can't, without going that much detail, I kind of understand where he's coming from, right? It's an aspect of like, okay, the chances of like, you know, of this being for you, like what you want, Miles, is unrealistic. Like it makes no sense.
It's a very like things aren't always gonna go the way you want them to.
Yeah.
Kind of vibe. Like you have to learn to live with, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
And like he's not wrong, right? It's kind of the folly of a hero, right? That sometimes you can't be like saving everyone, right? And there's a hint of that in the trailers and to some of the promotional stuff. But again, you're not getting the meat and bones yet.
Right.
You're only getting the appetizer before you get to the entree. But yeah, Spot. He's not into that much. I'm gonna be honest.
No, he's not. But
he is serviceable to a T.
Yeah, I was gonna say like he's very, because I think the funny thing is like you feel like he's just kind of like a very jokey villain,
which he is.
Yeah, but it's like one of those like okay, now he's
yeah.
Okay, now there's a point where he's like, he stops being a joke. Okay, he's being serious. Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh, crap. And the way they visually represent that is so cool. He's probably one of my favorite animated things in the movie.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's just a clear white space, right? And you can see, like, a little, like, lines of, like the circle and line stuff that people, like, what artists would do, like, to, like, sketch like the skeleton. I love that. That was so cool. And so creative.
I mean, yeah, and you know his name is Spot, so because he has these like black spots that will appear on his body sometimes. They use it to like make little portals.
Yeah.
And stuff.
But and again, like I've always known him mainly from the '90s Spider-Man cartoon, right? And in that, he was only there for one episode. But I find it funny, right, that the '90s show was the one that came up with the idea of the Spider-Verse first, and now has come up with the connection of Spot as well. So this is what I was talking about earlier, right? So like in the '90s cartoon, towards the end of the season, the final season, right? There's like Madam Web's like, okay, Peter, I'm gonna have you go to this universe, this alternate universe, where you turn bad, you fuse with the Carnage symbiote. Because for a reason, a portal appeared that was the same portal that was developed by Spot, right? That had the Carnage symbiote, so now it's Spider Carnage, right? And you're gonna team up with all these different Spider-Men from different universe. Also, there's Ben Reilly. He's like, "Who the fuck are you?" He's like, "I'm a clone of you. Remember that one dude? Yeah, I remember that dude. Fuck that dude." Exactly.
Yeah, and I think there's a Iron Spider kind of like before the Iron Spider suit was a thing.
Yeah, it was like a medieval knight kind of looking thing, but yeah, it was really cool. That's kind of funny how the '90s Spider-Man like predated all this shit.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is kind of like one of those like little neat like fan like knowledge things, you know, where it's like, you know, technically, you know, the 90s Spider-Man was the first to do a weird like multi crossover thing of different Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is kind of neat to see that.
Yeah. But going back to Spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's one of those he's a character that is done in a way where it's like, holy crap, this is a really cool like reinterpretation of the character that's like not only modern but also makes him much more interesting, right? Because like I said, he's not that important in the comics. My only knowledge of him was in the 90s cartoon, which is why seeing all this made me go like, oh yeah, they did do that. Oh, I like how they connected that. That's cool. But they made him more of a threat here. And again, we won't go into it as to why he becomes more of a threat. But like, let's just say when he becomes, like, you're gonna be like, oh shit. Oh, that's that's bad.
Right.
Yeah. Anything else you want to go in with?
I will say there is a. Not to say that this is something that I am against, but it is kind of interesting that they are pushing a bit of a romance subplot with Miles and Gwen.
Yeah. I've never been a fan of that romance. Mostly because it always felt kind of weird to me. Right? Like, not to say like Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy can't be a thing together, right? No, it's I'm totally fine. What if like a different universe, Gwen, and like I've heard all of it, right? I heard all of the weird like thought processes. For me, it's just really weird because it's like putting Gwen in this really weird spot, right, as a character.
Right.
Where she's kind of like the center of like all the romances. Granted, this is a multiverse storyline, so it kind of like makes a little sense, but it's kind of weird, right?
I mean, Gwen herself makes a statement of like, you know, Gwen Stacy always gets involved with Spider-Man somehow, but it almost always never ends up going, well.
Yeah, no. Her Peter died. We all know what happened with Gwen.
Yeah, we all know what happens in Gwen in most Spider-Man stories.
Yeah.
She is like, she dies and is one of the various catalysts of like, Spider-Man can't save everyone, not even his girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know?
And just giving her this kind of like role, I always felt, especially for like with Miles, right? It feels kind of weird to me. I don't know. It feels like it's making Gwen a really like weird
like it defaults like the one like main female character we have to just being like also love interest, right?
Yeah. Now granted she has more of a agency in this movie, so I'm not against like the character, right? This isn't the same Gwen as it is in the comics and all that stuff, but it's always weird to me when they kind of put her in this weird romance aspect, right? Because even in the original like Spider-Verse comic, right? Peter's like, Gwen, I can't let you do this. Like, it's like, Peter, I know I lost my Peter. I know how it feels, but I'm still gonna fight, right?
Right.
Like, that's still kind of weird to me, right? Like, it's like, Peter, come. That's not the same Gwen. Dude, come on. But like it feels kind of weird. It's like this weird attachment thing. Again, this is not me on the character. This is me how it's kind of like weirdly.
I think what made it weird for me was the fact that they also kind of like are sort of making it a love triangle, even though like I don't know, they're kind of half-assing like a love triangle with Spider-Punk, with Gwen and Miles, because like it's like they make notes of like, oh yeah, no, she's been hanging out with the Spider-Punk. They crash. She crashes at his place all the time.
Like, what do you mean about crashing at his place?
Like, it's like, what do you mean like this true? Like, He's like, you left your toothbrush back there. I'll say, what do you mean you left this toothbrush back there? What does that mean?
Yeah,
a lot of that. And
it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not that big of a thing, because I know from what I remember hearing, like, that there was gonna be something like that. And I'm like, oh, please don't let this be like a running
storyline or something,
like a running gag that happens all the time. And like, it's kind of like, thankfully, a bit toned down, but it's still kind of. I think that's what made it weird for me. Like, okay, so you're getting, all right, so you're implying that there might be a thing between Miles and Gwen. Okay, I guess I can live with that. But now you're trying to spin it with a love triangle thing just to make the audience feel like, oh, like who to root for. It's like, why did you got to do that?
Yeah, it puts Gwen in a weird spot.
Yeah, like,
because it's like she's always been relegated as the girlfriend that died.
Yeah, now we're putting her once again. It's just like, oh yeah, she's just dating inspired people.
Yeah.
Why can't you just be her own?
Like, it's really weird.
Yeah.
Like, again, I'm not against I like the character in the movie. She's really cool. It's just really weird how we're kind of doing this, right? It's not hurting my opinion of the movie, actually.
Yeah, like, strangely enough, this criticism, is not even like it doesn't hurt the experience of the movie.
It doesn't.
It's just a very sort of interesting, like, that is an odd thing for this movie to have, and I'm just kind of wondering where this is gonna go in the next one.
Yeah. Because, like, there's a lot of things that leave you, and this is what I'm saying, it leaves you wanting more. Because, like, in my mind, with all that's happening, it's like, oh, what if, like, they do this instead of this? Because, like, without going too much into spoilers, let's just say the reason for things happen is, like, one of those things where, oh, it connects very well with the first movie, right? Because of the events that happened in the first movie.
Yeah, like, let's just say that part of the reason why things are the way they are is because of, like, the aftermath of the first movie,
Mm-hmm.
Like, messing with the multiverse in the first movie with the, the particle collider by Kingpin has essentially created a ripple effect that, and in this movie we kind of see the consequences of that ripple effect.
Yeah. And, like, they do things that I'm like, oh my god, I didn't even notice that in the movie, or, like, I didn't think of it. I thought it was something else, but now it means something else. And I'm just like, oh my god, right? So, again, like we were talking earlier about the Gwen stuff, like, that doesn't deteriorate from my enjoyment of the movie. Actually, it's more of a weird footnote. Right? And, like, to go along, we were saying a second ago about, like, how, like, the movie kind of, like, is still well written to the point you kind of ignore it, or, like, you really don't think about it. But, like, it leads, the way it's set up, the way it, like, transitions from the first movie to this one, and where it could go, kind of, like, makes me going, like, what could happen, right? Because you and me were, like, on the way back from watching it, we were both like, where could they go, right? What if they do this? What if it means that this could happen? Or, like, all this crazy stuff. Like they are. This is one of those. This is a movie that does the idea of the multiverse and runs with it in a way that makes it a lot more interesting than, like, I feel like other multiversal stories have done in, like, live action or, like, in other mediums, right?
Right.
Like, a lot of them have do it in a really cool way. This one's a very different and a really, like, cool way. I'll just say that, right? I think that's about as much as I can say. The music was good. The animation styles are fantastic.
There's a lot of frames where you can go, I can use that as a wallpaper.
Oh, hell yes. And, like, just like the first one, like, where they're like, yeah, if you, like, stop it at a certain, like, frame, you can see how, like, we, like, layered it to be, like, a comic book. And I was like, yeah, I can see a speech bubble right there where that dude is talking, right? I like there's enough, like, space on that one area where I can see a speech bubble.
Heck, there were some speech bubbles that were popping up sometimes. Heck, there was even like some like little like
The asterisks
that like explain some things.
Yeah.
Like I think Spider-Punk makes like this like slang reference, and you're kind of just like, wait, what? And for a quick like second or two, pops up. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
because he's British. Like, oh, that's British slang for this, and it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of that in this movie, which I mean, I will say might be distracting for some audiences.
Yeah.
But for the most part, at least for me when I was watching it, they're just kind of like, oh, that's kind of neat.
What's the word I'm looking for? It makes the experience much more engaging, in my opinion, because they really made it feel like a comic book, which is basically what a lot of people said about the first one, and now they just ran it with it in this one. But yeah, I think that's as much as I can say. All I want to say is that I don't know where the next one's gonna go, because they leave it in such a way, and they introduce a lot of stuff that made me go like, wait, does that mean? Oh, if they do that, that'd be nuts. That would be nuts, right? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. There's also like small like indicators of like MCU Spider-Man.
Well, I mean, from the trailer we know that they do mention the events of No Way Home. You know, of Miguel being like, "Hey, don't get me started with that Doctor Strange and the nerd from Earth, 199999 and stuff." Like those idiots messing with the time multiverse.
Yeah, there's a bit more. And I'm just like,
there's that, and also like solid mentions of the other like live action Spider-Man movies. Like we don't get like a full like Toby cameo or Andrew cameo. I'll say that right now.
Yeah, we're not getting that.
Yeah, they don't show up and like hunt down Miles and stuff. There's none of that, but we do get to see like little references to them.
Yeah, this is the Spider-Verse. They're including everyone, including those guys.
Yeah.
But don't expect anything too much. That's all we're gonna say.
Like I don't expect much from, say, like as much as it would be cool for a Tom Holland cameo as the MCU Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure that given Marvel's and Sony's deal with how they're using Spider-Man, like they can't really use Tom like for stuff without like the Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios approval kind of thing.
Yeah. And I kind of get it why. But yeah, I think this is a good place to end it, right? I want to talk more, but then I'll be going into spoiler.
I mean, we can wrap up with our scores,
Yeah, so you go first. What is your score for this movie?
I'm gonna say that this movie gets like a 9 out of 10 from me. And I think the only reason why I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is just simply because it does kind of end on a bit of a cliffhanger. Like
we knew that was happening though.
I knew that was gonna happen, but I think for me, like I think the difference between this and say something like Infinity War. Like Infinity War ends on a cliffhanger, but it feels so like it has like a bit of finality to it.
I understand what you're saying.
Like this part of the story has wrapped up.
Yeah.
This part of the story had its own 3-act structure and had a conclusion. It's just that the conclusion is that Thanos snaps half of the universe away. Our heroes have lost. Thanos is sitting, comfortably on a grateful universe as the sun sets.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
As he wanted it.
As he wanted to. He's, Meanwhile, this movie, I'm not going to spoil, obviously, the ending, but it leaves in in an obvious, like, hey, okay, there is more stuff to come. There is a lot of stuff that's about to go down.
They confirmed it's going to be more crazier in the next one.
Yeah. So, all this stuff's going to go down, and we'll see you in March.
Yeah. For me, in my heart of hearts, 10 out of 10. But if I'm being critical, I would have to agree on a 9 out of 10. Everything that we just said was perfect. It was done so well. The story arcs, the character relationships, the art style, the visuals. My God, I was going crazy. I loved it. The references, the connections to the comics, and everything about it was done so well. It left me wanting more. I wanted more, and I knew it. And just because it leaves in a cliffhanger, it shouldn't be a negative. It shouldn't. But I kind of understand why some people are like, it's almost perfect. It's almost, or it is perfect, right? I can understand why it's those two camps. For me, it's perfect, but it's missing. I need to see the second movie to complete it, right? It's like when you watch Infinity War and you're like, I want to see what's next. I can't,
Right.
I can't give my full thoughts until I see the whole thing, right? And like obviously people have different opinions on that kind of stuff, but like for me, yeah, 9 out of 10 makes perfect sense. I can't wait for more though.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for March.
Yeah, I mean, I can't either. It's gonna be very interesting to see how this story wraps up.
Yeah, I hope that they all come together and fight the big bad. That's all I want.
Mm-hmm.
It might happen, but it's gonna be a bit of a struggle to get there, and I want that struggle to be there. But yeah, guys, that's the end of the episode. Be sure to follow us on all social medias: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And Geek Centurions. We're most active on Instagram, where you'll find a link tree to all the podcasts that we're officially part of: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, all the like. And we have a link to the YouTube where you'll find us there. You be sure to comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And Patreon for anyone who wants to support us. Yeah, that's our thoughts on Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah, just go watch it because I want to talk more about it, but I can't because I don't believe in spoiling it for some people, right? Like I would love to talk about this movie like full heartedly. I can't wait for you guys to watch it. But anyways, it's been your boy Eli.
Me, Joe.
You guys have a good one. Peace.